So the main German defense of this area was located at Seelow Heights, mainly just artillery, and at Reitwein, that was kind of located on the northern edge, just a little bit to the west of a sort of hill that stretches north to south on the river Oder, about a mile west of there. So naturally, if people were to stream in from Poland, if the Soviets stream in from Poland, this would be the first place they took. And this is the village church of Reitwein. And this is terrifying at the old church in Reitwein. You can see that somebody was probably inside of the cellar, someone in the window. You can see the bullet pockmarks all around those positions. Now much of it has been sort of repaired, but you can still see the shrapnel and bullet damage, and it's been left open as a monument to the Battle of Seelow Heights. And we're here at Reitwein, which is basically overlooking the Battle of Seelow Heights in the lead up to the main push towards Berlin. And this is the old rectory that's been here since the 1500s. And it was burned down and rebuilt a number of times prior to World War II. But after the war, you can see all of the bullet damage that was made to the side of the building. The local community wanted it rebuilt, and the East German government sort of acquiesced, and it is still active to this day. The main church at Reitwein is up here, and it's now kept in a ruined state to remind the locals as a memorial for World War II. In front of the old rectory at Reitwein, you have this Soviet monument with countless dead buried from the battle. Who knows how many actually died here? The numbers are said to be much higher than the projected numbers from Soviet authorities. And here's the main wall of the Soviet monument in Reitwein. I believe these are the 4 heroes of the Soviet Union, and Jimmy pointed out this one looks just like a child. So we just arrived to our hotel in Seelow Heights. In the morning we're going to be seeing more sights with the Battle of Berlin, but from April 16th to 19th, in the crossing over the Oder River, you had 1 million soldiers of the 1st Belarusian Front and about 78,000 Polish communist soldiers, both of which commanded by General Zhukov. And here, at this pitched battle, in which the Germans were greatly outnumbered, you've got a monument set by the Association of Expellees to commemorate people who were kicked out of their homeland, who had no real part in the war, refugees fleeing the millions of men meeting here and fighting in the lead up to the Battle of Berlin. And the monument says, "In memory to all who lost their lives in war, in flight and expellation, your victim calls for this interactional understanding and peace left by the Association of Expellees District Association of Oderland." And about 100 yards away from the monument to the Association of Expellees, you've got this one to the 20th Panzer Grenadier, which was formed in 1942 and fought a number of mainly retreating battles across Eastern Europe, starting in Kursk. And this was specifically to the Hamburg group. Down here you can see someone left a photo of their father or grandfather who was killed on the 16th of April here at Seelow Heights. And in the shadow of the Panzer monument you have other monuments, mainly from 1945. This one to someone's father, Richard Briscott, and a major who fell in February 1945. And in the same cemetery, we're not sure if these are soldiers or if they're just people. They look to be military age, all born in the mid-20s. And this goes to the end of the cemetery on both sides, here in Seelow Heights. And this is the German soldiers' cemetery at Seelow Heights. This seems to be one of the monuments to the executions that took place on the 16th of April 1945 as Soviet soldiers began to pour into the Seelow Heights. Heinz Frenz, who was a lieutenant, was captured with 11 other soldiers and executed, buried in this spot. And you can see over here the German graves which stretch out on both sides of the cemetery. And again at the same cemetery, just across the way from the mass grave, is a monument to the heroes of World War I. And I've seen these monuments in Britain. It seems like every single village, no matter how small it was, had a pretty large list of names. Very unfortunate, the Seelow Heights Museum, I think, is closed for renovations. But you can see some of the static displays outside. And maybe this building is open. We'll be back here tomorrow morning to see if it is. And I told a friend that I would get him some dirt from different battlefields, and they were leveling out the ground here at the Seelow Heights Museum. So, it's perfect. One of the first things to happen after World War II, when the Soviets occupied this part of Germany, they erected two pillars reading 1941 and the one on the other end of this platform, 1945. The one that reads 1941 says you're an honor to your homeland, and on the right it says your homeland will never forget you. And just above the museum commemorating Seelow Heights, you've got the graves of Soviet soldiers who fell, and you can look over in the direction of the Oder River, which is only a few miles this way. They streamed up and over the hills, making a straight shot for Berlin. The battles around this area lasted several days and killed many, many thousands of people. In the text there reads, "Eternal fame for the heroes who fell fighting the fascist invaders for the independence and freedom of the Soviet Union." And this actually is the only writing in German in this section. It says, "Here rest soldiers and officers of the Belarusian front who died on 18th of April 1945 in the Battle of Seelow Heights." And we're here in the Kostrin Forest, just inside of Poland on the eastern bank of the Oder River. Throughout World War II, this city had about 24,000 inhabitants at the beginning of the war, but it swelled in size because it was a sub-camp of the Sachsenhausen forced labor camp. And on top of that, a number of factories were built to increase productivity and contribute to the war effort. Now, during the Battle of Seelow Heights, this place was occupied by the Red Army in March of 1945. And you can see the fort is much older than the war, but during that war, 95% of the buildings in town, including more than 30 of the factories, were destroyed. Suck. Oh wait, he's coming out. And up in this clearing is the old church that was inside of this fortress. It was destroyed as the Red Army made a push into the local area towards Berlin. And this is all that remains. Some more details on the attempted putsch here. It was led by a man named Ernst Buchrucker, who was the leader of a small grouping of Black Reichswehr, and they intended to take the fort and spread out from there. Well, on the morning of October 1923, he delivered a speech to about 370 something of his supporters outside of this castle that was reportedly almost incoherent. Then he entered the office of the commander and pointed out that the numbers of men that he had were superior, and the commander basically told him he was a limp dish rag and ordered him to stand down. Pretty immediately, the supporters of Buchrucker realized that he was very ineffective, and almost everybody stood down, but eventually, as 7 of his supporters, they called themselves the Labor Commandos, they were exiting a truck in the local town, and they were fired on by local Reichswehr, and those were the only casualties of the attempted putsch. He spent a bit of time in jail, but was let out early, and thus ends the national putsch of Ernst Buchrucker. This is certainly something. German fortifications. And along this river over here is the fortified group Ludendorf. I think it's kind of interesting because this is very close to the eastern wall, or the Ostwall. The soil around here is so sandy. It's all just a big marsh. Be careful! This goes down. Oh my god. What's this say? This actually looks like some old writing. I do not envy whoever was in here. On the inside literally just cracked it open. And it looks like there's a series of craters around the old Ludendorf fortification. I could put some photos of this on Google Earth to show you kind of where we're at. Bits of concrete. And this is Panzer work, 865. I'm gonna see how deep down I can go, because that looks pretty deep. Don't trip. I have no idea how deep a fall that would be. You might just keep falling. Wow. You wouldn't want to get caught on the iron bars there. The next foot of this tour is going to be at the Ostwall Museum, but taking that eastern wall that protected the frontier of Germany came at a very heavy cost for Soviet troops, who lost 2,074 men who were buried right here, and took many, many more casualties and deaths as the campaign to push towards Berlin progressed. And it's pretty sad to see how poorly maintained this cemetery is. It reads, "Eternal glory to the heroes, unknown soldiers who died in the fight against the fascist invaders, freedom and independence of the USSR and of Poland, January 1945. And the cemetery where the Soviet soldiers who died in their breakthrough of the Eastern Wall is on the grounds of an old Jewish cemetery that was destroyed in World War II. You can see old gravestones here. And that was a very common thing throughout Europe, especially in the German occupation zones. They would totally demolish Jewish cemeteries, basically hiding all records of the Jews' existence in that part of Europe. And we just got to the Ostwall Bunker Museum. I can tell already I'm gonna like this place. They don't already? I think so. Might be the original one too. And at the Ostwall Museum, just out beyond the parking lot, you can see this was the sort of anti-tank defense that the Germans would use. And their fortifications are more up on the hills over here. And up here is Panzerwerk 717 on top of a beautiful hill of flowers. And when we get up there, I'll give you a little tour, show you around just the local scenery. I don't know how well it shows up in the video, but this is a trench that kind of encircles Panzerwerk 717. You can see the damage that bullets do. Eats right through it like butter. Really though, we didn't want to spend the money on taking a tour of the tunnels, because hopefully we'll be seeing tunnels elsewhere. But it's interesting just to point out that these are connected by 35, 36 kilometers of underground tunnels, and it took 3 days of the Soviet army absolutely just pummeling this place before they broke through. And when they broke through in early 1945, that's when most of the Germans with any common sense knew that they were pretty much finished.